So we are going over the milling tools in Bob CAD/CAM version 37. We're going to go over feeds and speeds. We're going to go over creating a custom tool and being able to load in tools from tooling manufacturers' websites. So the first one we're going to go over is creating a custom tool shape so that we can create a form cutter. You could imagine this as like some railing, and we want to do a side roughing on the railing here to make the specific shape from a form cutter. Be able to see that in simulation and make sure everything looks correct in our simulation. So all I did was, I'll hit undo once so that we can start from scratch. I go to create 2D and I go to rectangle. I made this 12 inches in length and 2 inches in width. And to get the bottom left corner at my CAD origin location, I simply click on this option bottom left right here, this icon, to get the bottom left corner of the rectangle at my CAD origin location, and I clicked OK. And now I'm going to go into CAM to go along the sides here to be able to see that in my simulation and cut some railing like this. I've got multiple customers in the past that want to be able to see this in simulation and make sure it cuts correctly. You've got the right depth for your railing that you're cutting along the sides with a form cutter. So up at the top, I go to CAM and I go to a new job. And I go to milling and I select what type of machine that I'm using. So BC Mill. BC stands for Bobcat here in our software program. This is our Bobcat 3-axis milling machine. This is a Fanuc-based G-code output, and you can select any other machines here. If you don't see your machine in the list here, you can go to bobcadsupport.com, and there is a link there that you can download a post-processor. And if you don't see the list of post-processors, you don't see your specific controller in that list, you can always, again, call us or email us at support@bobcad.com to get the post-processor creation started there for you. And that's all part of tech support. So if you have tech support, you're on an Advantage plan, you can email us a sample program, you can email us a list of G&M codes and what they do for your machine, and any CAN cycles that you're using, and you'd be able to get that post request started for us to create the post processor for you, which is a file that formats the G-code specifically to your machine. And again, this machine is the Bobcat 3-axis mill, which is a Fanuc-based G-code, which many CNC machines will take here. So we select our machine and we go to Stock Wizard, where it asks next for my workpiece. This is if I have a finished 3D model that I want to work off of. I don't have the 3D model created. I've just got this 2D drawing set up. So I'm not going to be selecting a 3D model for my workpiece. It can be very useful, especially like in 3-axis milling. You're trying to cut down to something of a specific shape. You can select the 3D model, be able to view it in the simulation, and make sure that everything is cut to size. But we're just doing some basic 2-axis cutting, profile cutting along the side of the shape here. So I'm going to skip this page. I'm going to the next page here, the next button, which will bring me to my Stock Wizard. And if I click and hold on my scroll wheel to revolve this around, I can see on an angle here in an isometric view the thickness of the stock, length, and width. So I'm starting with my X and Y amounts here, the dimensions for my stock. I'm just leaving it at 12 inches by 2 inches. And let's make the stock, let's have it go down a little bit further. Let's go 2 inches for the Z depth as well. And then our last page, going to the next page here. Our last page is our machine setup. This is where we're setting our work offset at. So it starts at the CAD origin location. If I needed to change to a different corner, let's say I'm jogging the tool over and touching off at this corner, I can click on origin over here, click on this point, and that would be my new X0, Y0, Z0 in the G-code as my G54 location. You can see this coordinate system as our CAD origin location here still, And this would be, I sort of explained it as my cam origin location. I'm just going to have it line up with my CAD origin location, make things easy on me, and scroll down to the bottom of this page and click OK. Brings me to my cam tree, where you can see I can change my machine and my post processor at any time. I can change my stock at any time, the stock size. I could also change the transparency if I like it a little bit lighter of a color for my stock. I can change the color altogether here. And I can also change my machine setup G54 location at any time by right-clicking on machine setup 1 and going up to the top and editing that. Now, we're just doing a basic 2-axis cut along the side of the part, and I'm making a form cutter so that I can view that in simulation and make sure it's the right design that I want for some railing like this. So I'm going to go to a new file. Going to the top, and I'm hitting New. Creates a new document. And I'm making the design of my milling tool before I do that 2-axis profile cut across it. So I am going to the top, I'm going to create 2D, and I'm going to line. And basically what I'm doing here is I'm creating the profile in this first quadrant of the tool. If I'm looking at it from a side view of the milling tool, I'm creating half of basically like the radius of the cutter. So if I'm looking at it from the side view, if I've got a 2-inch cutter, I'd have this one and I'd have this one. I don't have to create this second line though. I'm just creating half of the profile here. So in my first quadrant, that's a bit large for my tool. I'm just going back to line, and I'm going to click on the CAD origin location, and then I'm going to sketch a line. Let's make it 1/2 inch here for my length. Now, it was pretty easy for me to make it 1/2 inch because down at the bottom right corner, we have this snap increment option. It incrementally moved that line 1/16 of an inch over until I got to this 1/2 inch location. All right, and then I click OK. Before I click OK, I'm not able to get to that end point of the line. So I click OK, and then I'm able to hover over that line and start sketching a new line from the endpoint I just left off at. And I'm going to make some funky shape here of the cutter so that I can see the design along the side of the stock that I'm cutting across here. So let's go up and let's go over. Let's make this sort of tapered shape like this. And I'm clicking OK each time to finalize the line, and that I can hover over the line again and start right at my endpoint from the last one. Let's do this sort of like jagged move here. And then OK. Let's go over. Let's go even further over like that. Make it a little more dramatic. I don't know. Let's go up. Let's go over. And then after that, I'm going up, clicking OK. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cancel out. This is my form cutter shape, and you can see all of the lines are solid lines. I'm going down to the bottom right. I'm changing the line style from a solid line to any of these dashed lines. I just like the next one down visually. And when I go to my line function, from this endpoint, moving up, any solid line is the cutting part of the tool, and any dash line is the non-cutting part of the tool that you'll see in your tool page when you define it here. All right, so if I'm sort of measuring this, I'm at 1 inch, 2 inches, so this would be sort of what I'm making along the side of the railing, and this is sort of, the rest that I'm not going to be cutting from. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to cancel out of my select mode there. And in this file, I'm going to go to the top and I'm going to CAM, and I'm going over to the tool library. The 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th one over. I'm going to tool library. It opens up my tool library here. Some new features here in version 37 would be creating a new tool library. So you can see the default tool library here has all the default tools. We heard from our customers, and they don't have all of these tools in their shop necessarily. So what we did, instead of deleting all of these tools individually, I think we could actually, nowadays we can hold shift and click and delete multiple tools at a time. But let's say you've got different machinists that are programming here in Bobcat. You want to use your own specific library. You can go up to the top here, and this add button will allow you to create a new library here. I can rename it. I'm just going to name it webinar library. Hit enter, and I've got my webinar library here, and now it's blank. So you can see I can go to my default tool library. I can select certain tools, and I can clone a certain tool or copy a certain tool to another library. So if I've got the same tools in one library to another, I can copy and paste it, and I can create my own from here. So what I'm doing up at the top, we have our add and delete buttons for a tool in the library. I'm making sure that I'm highlighting end mill rough over on the left-hand side so that it adds the tool into that milling category. I could probably go to like T cutter or maybe dove mill for this specific tool, but I'm just going to leave it with end mill rough. And I go to add. And you can see it brings in just a basic tool. I can label it. I'm going to name it webinar tool. Now here's where I can type in all of the parameters manually. Type in the diameter, type in flute length, corner radius, number of flutes. Now I'm not able to create like a form cutter by just typing in the numbers here. I have to go down to the very bottom here and assign tool geometry. And then I just window select the profile of the tool, click OK, and then you'll see that crazy shape for my tool right here. You can see the diameter that it added in, the flute length, the corner radius, number of flutes. I can type that in because I'm not able to really like define that in a 2D shape, right? I can click on type in number of flutes, overall length, protrusion length, and the tool number and the... Uh-oh. Why did it just change that? Let me see here. And then at the end, I can change the tool material type if it's high-speed steel, carbide, or a custom tool material type. You can see this preview. Let's see if I click OK and go back to it. Go to my webinar library. Go to my webinar tool. Double-click on it. Let me try it again, because I kept clicking on all of these numbers here, and then it brought me back to this. So maybe let's go assign tool geometry again. Click OK, and there we go. And then I'll just simply click OK down at the bottom. Not get too crazy with clicking on all of those numbers there. All right. Oh, let's see. Let's see. So I got a couple of questions here. David asked, how is the tool library different from the tool crib? Good question. So we are currently just in the tool library currently, which is your extensive list of all of your tools that you have at the shop. When we go into creating a milling job and going to mill 2 axis, when we go to a tool page, for this profile rough operation, for example, I go to the top and go to tool crib, and I go to, you can see the tool crib up at the top and the tool library down at the bottom. Now this tool library, you can see the drop down here, your default tool library, your new library, and your webinar library that I just created. Now this is my extensive list of tools in my webinar library. And up at the top is my tool crib, which is sort of like a short list of tools that I'm using in this specific milling job. So I can just pull from the certain tools that I'm using in the milling job with all my different operations, and it's not the extensive list of tools that I have that, it could get pretty cumbersome to try to find your tool in the library here. But here's my tool. Yeah, Matthew mentioned I was covering up the tool here, so let me, I can sort of go back to that real quick. I mean, you sort of saw it, but I'll put myself down at the bottom. There we go. So we go back to our tool page. Again, we go to the top, we go to CAM, we go to tool library. I created the webinar library, which only has that webinar tool in here. I'll just create it again just for you guys to be able to see it. I create a new tool. Click on, I have to go to a certain milling category there. And then I clicked on end mill rough on the left-hand side for my category of tool that I'm bringing it into. And that highlights the new tool button here. Now you can see the tool right here. So when I go down to the bottom, which again, I'm sort of in the way. There we go. So down here at the very bottom, we have this button, Assign Tool Geometry. I click on that. I highlight the profile of the tool and click OK. And then that brings me to my tool shape right here. And so I don't have to select any of these options for diameter, flute length, corner radius. I can change number of flutes, and I can change tool material type if it's high-speed steel, carbide, or a custom, or if it's an insert cutter. I can also assign tool holder, where I can set up the tool shape from here as well. I don't think there's a way to draw it out, but you can just type in height and diameter of all of the components of your tool holder here. All right, so we'll cancel out of that. If I hit cancel, it's going to ask me if I want to save the changes. Are you sure you want to disregard changes? If I hit no, brings me back here to hit OK to save everything. But let's say I don't want this tool, I just want to leave webinar tool in here. I can hit cancel. It'll ask, are you sure you want to disregard changes? Yes, it'll just leave webinar tool in there for me. All right, so let me go back to the comment section. Make sure you guys are caught up to speed. Okay, don't have any more questions. Looking good. I'm going to go to my file here. And I'm going to use that form cutter to cut along the two sides long ways of my stock here in the X direction. For some railing, I've had many customers in the past that work with wood to cut along the sides of railing like this and be able to see their shape that they're trying to cut. This is very basic, just 2.5 axis cutting. I've had customers in the past doing like 4 or 5 axis work to cut along, winding railing along a stairwell and things like that. But we're just going to be doing some basic work here today. So in the cam tree, I'm going to right click on machine setup 1 and I go to mill 2 axis. I select my geometry. So I'm just going to go to a top view. I'm going to click on this top line here, and I'm going to click on the bottom line here for my geometry that I'm cutting. And then I'm going to click OK. My next page, I can set my top of feature, which I'm cutting from Z0 and working my way down and cutting along the sides of the railing. My total depth, I'm going down 2 inches. So really what that's doing, I think the cutting part of the tool is a little bit longer than 2 inches, but really what that's saying is the bottom of the tool is going to be down at Z-2, and whatever that form cutter from Z-2 is doing is going to come along the sides and cut from there. All right, then my next page will be machining strategy. I'm going to be doing a profile rough. I usually do a profile finish just so that I can cut along the sides of the profile of my part. But in this instance, I want to use profile rough so that I can use an allowance, the allowance feature, to offset so that I don't cut the full radius of the tool. I'm just going to cut part of the tool with the form cutter to get the specific shape that I want. So I'm going to highlight profile rough over here and delete that out with this red X button. And I've got my profile roughing operation here. Next page, we have options for tabs. I'm not doing a full profile around a part to leave a tab along the sides here. So I'm just going to skip this page. Go to my next page here. Here's where I can set up my work offset, G54, or if you're setting a different work offset here as G55 or anything else, you can select that here. I'm leaving that alone as well and going to the next page. And here's where I can select my tool. So I go to the tool crib. I go to my tool library, select the drop down for webinar library. I have my webinar tool here. I normally select it and you can add it into the tool crib with this arrow. I usually drag and drop it into the tool crib because what I've got old habits from the older version where this was on sort of different pages and it automatically goes into the tool crib. But, I'm sort of remembering the old version where we just click OK. But in version 37, we now have this box that says your last selected tool was in the tool library, but you didn't bring it into the tool crib. Do you want to bring it into the tool crib first? And so it does it for you automatically now. That's actually pretty nice. In our older versions, I think in 36, it didn't. It just expected you to bring it into the tool crib. So what I normally do is I will drag and drop it into the tool crib to remind myself that it's placed in the crib there. Again, the tool library, an extensive list of your tools that you have at the shop, and the tool crib here is just the tools that you're utilizing in this specific milling job. So if I go into the different categories, you'll see that if I went to my default tool library, you can see all of the tools in my tool library here in each category. There's none in the tool crib because I'm not utilizing any taper tools, any lollipop tools, or T-cutters. I've only got that one tool that I'm using in the tool crib in my end mill rough category, my custom shape tool. All right, cool. You won't see the specific design here in the tool page, but you will see T1 webinar tool. You'll see all of the different parameters, your feeds and speeds, and here is where we're going to talk about setting up your feeds and speeds for each specific tool. So the checkbox here, use system feeds and speeds, will calculate your spindle RPM, your cutting feed rate, and your plunge feed rate based on your specific material that you're using for your stock. You can manually change these numbers by just unchecking this box and typing in your spindle RPM, your cutting feed rate, and your plunge feed rate that you want to use. But we'll go next to setting up your specific feeds and speeds based on material types. You can set those up. So we'll check the box, use system feeds and speeds. We'll hit compute so that we can just sort of get out of that page for a moment. We'll go over to the cam tree, and under the stock, I click on the arrow to the left of the stock button here. So I click on that arrow, it'll expand my options. Only has one option below that, which is my material library. I double click on that, where it says carbon steel, and you can see the stock material library that opens. And whether I'm machining from carbon steel, aluminum, different types of plastic, we have feeds and speeds for each material type automatically set up here. Now I actually have a wood category because I created it myself and I haven't done anything in this list yet. But this is just to show you, we don't have a wood category necessarily by default. There's too many variables for wood, density, humidity, and all kinds of things that could change the feeds and speeds very easily. So we don't have a group for that by default, but you can add your own group and create your own material types in there, and the and your feeds and speeds for each material type of wood. So we'll sort of go through that. Under the material group, right below it here, you can see this button, Add Group. Click on that, and I can type in the group. I'm just going to name it Wood, and click OK. Puts it in alphabetical order, so it's down at the bottom here. And then I'm going to click on Wood to highlight it, open up that material category, and then down at the bottom, I'm going to add material. I'm just going to name it, I don't know, let's name it Oak. And then I can type in my surface feet per minute. I can type in my surface feet per minute for tapping. I can type in my chip load per flute, and I can type in my plunge chip load, which would be the chip load as I'm plunging down into the material and then working my way around. So with these, first you can see over on the left-hand side, you have your tool material type. So this is if I'm machining with a high-speed steel tool. Down at the bottom here, you can see add new tool material, and I can type in carbide for this one. I can add new tool material, and type in whatever I want for my tool material here. Let's go with surface feet per minute. I don't know, let's go at 500. For my chip load per flute, let's go at, I don't know, let's go 10, and plunge chip load, let's go 5. And we'll click OK. Before I click OK, actually, you'll see that carbide has these numbers that I just typed in, and high-speed steel will have different numbers because I haven't changed those numbers for the tool type there. So I'll click OK, and you can see we have created feeds and speeds for carbon steel, aluminum, alloy steel, and these are pretty conservative numbers. So we always recommend our customers contact their tool manufacturer to make sure all of these numbers are dialed in correctly. And so you can contact them, make sure that these are good numbers for your specific tool. If not, you can just modify material and modify the tool types here and type in your specific numbers for the next milling job for you. I'm going to right click on the feature and edit that. And I'm going back to my tool page. So now I can go to, let's go to the tool here. Under this drop down, I can go to modify tool. And here is where I can select my number of flutes and my tool material. So I can change it. You can see from high-speed steel, I've got spindle RPM as 36 revolutions per minute. And I change it from high-speed steel to carbide and click OK. And you'll see the spindle RPM change based on my tool type and based on the new tool material as, stock material as oak. So I can go to the next page, and I can set up all of my different parameters for the profile. So you've got standard, contour ramping, side roughing, and our compensation on the left side or the right side of the path, giving us our climb mill or conventional milling options. If you guys have done a profile operation, you know all of these gut patterns, parameters, all these pages. I know them by heart, so I'm just going to go pretty quickly through them. If you guys have any questions, let me know. If you have any questions in the comments section. Eric, you were saying you should see my tool list. Does that mean you got like a really extensive list of tools there? Any ways that maybe you might think of, I don't know, maybe trying to condense them, if you have different ways of any tips or tricks of condensing your tool list or anything that you've got in there. Let me know there. So we go to our cut patterns. We maybe let's do side roughing, where we can do a step over. I'm going to do, let's do 1/8 of an inch, and let's do 2 passes. Next page, we can set our side allowance. So I'm going to zero this out for now, and we can see what it looks like if you have 0 for the side allowance. We've got an option for single step down or multiple steps down. I don't want to do multiple steps down because that would just ruin the shape that I'm trying to make on the sides of the railing. So I'm just going to go to single step, doing my full depth of 2 inches. Next page, our lead in and lead out. I don't want to do vertical because I don't want to plunge down along the corner of the railing. I want to at least do parallel. I could maybe do right angle or circular, but I think parallel is going to be the best one for this one. And we'll do, I don't know, let's do 2 inches for the length for our lead in and our lead out here. All right. External corners. This doesn't matter. I'm not going around any corners, but just to show you, if we go around any corners like this, we can do a loop radius, triangle, bisect line. And so we can do a smooth transition around the corners there for that, and also for the internal corners. Next page, machine sequence. If I'm cutting a bunch of railing out, maybe let's say, I've got multiple parts that I'm cutting out at the same time, I can set the closest sorting order. Let's say maybe, if we're looking at this example, 1, 2, 3, 4, let's say between number 2 and number 3, there's a clamp in between here. I can go to no sorting, and based on how I selected my geometry, it'll cut it manually that way. So then I could select shape number 1, shape number 2. Then let's go down here so that we can avoid the clamp in between 2 and 3. Okay, how about now? Let me know if you guys can hear my voice. Had my I had my hand hit the wiring to my headset, so just want to make sure you guys can hear me again. I think we sort of left off, I don't know, maybe at like corner types, going around the sharp corners. Machine sequence, I can sort my specific ways of cutting the railing out. No sorting would be manually sorting them, setting it in an X or a Y direction. Advanced feed rates, where I can set my feed rate for my lead in and my lead out specifically. If I want to maybe slow it down and then sort of ramp up the speed there. And I also have a corner slowdown option here. And then my last page is MDI. That's if I want to add any G code directly into the operation manual direct input. What I normally do is I'll show as an example, I click on raw text. I can click on before or after operation here. And then I can click command and I can type in anything I want here. So if I type in anything, let's say if I type in MO1, it'll add an MO1 command before the operation. Or if I click from raw text to comment, if I type in anything here, it'll add parentheses before and after the text. So I'll type in test comment and hit compute. Now, here's the blue lead in for each pass, the green cut, and the blue lead out for each pass. This is going way into way into the railing. I just want to come off of it from the sides here. So I'm going to right click on the feature. I'm going to edit. And I think I have to do sort of a little bit of math here. the thickness of the stock is 2 inches. The radius of the tool is 1 inch. So the tool is going to come across like this. Oh, wait, no. Hold on 1 second. Sorry. I think if I change the direction here, let me make sure. Yeah, okay. That looks a lot better. So instead of cutting right along the sides there. Okay, so what that was doing is it's cutting on the opposite side of what I want it to. I want to cut it on the opposite, on the outside of the railing. It's trying to cut on the inside of these lines. So when I go to my geometry after I've computed, I can click on default chain start point under the feature. When I highlight that option, it'll show me the arrows of the direction of the cut there. So my compensation, if we remember, was on the left side of the path. And so if it's cutting along this direction, it's cutting inside. So I can either change the compensation from left to right, or I can change the direction of the cut by right-clicking on default chain start point and hitting reverse direction. You'll see both of those arrows reverse the direction. I just need to right-click on the feature and compute the toolpath again. And now they're cutting on the outside. So even then, it's going to cut. Before I go into simulation, we'll backplot it to see how far into the stock it's cutting. I'm going to right-click on the operation, Profile Rough, and I'm going to backplot. And here I can click on this next button to see each step in the toolpath and see it cut here. Yeah, so it's cutting even with the last pass here. It's cutting nothing. There we go. It's cutting right along the side there. So I've zeroed out the side allowance. I think the best way to cut exactly what I want to cut is just typing in a negative number for the side allowance here. So let's say I just want to cut into the stock a half an inch. I'm going to type in negative 0.5 and compute. And then when I backplot, I'm stepping through. This is my first side roughing operation. Stepping over 1/8 of an inch to the next one, and that's what my shape is going to be. Let's say I want to get this part of the cutter into the stock as well. I'm going to change it. No, I'm not going to change it. That's a lot to cut, so I'm going to leave it at a half inch that I'm cutting on both sides. I'm leaving the railing half of what it is, of from 2 inches to 1 inch. So, all right, let's save our progress, just in case anything funny happens. Sometimes there will be issues with simulation, any kind of freezing or crashing. You can call us about that. I'm going to click on Start Simulation. If you guys have any kind of freezing in simulation, there's some methods to help with that. Set your graphics card up right, make sure that the graphics card, the driver is up to date and things like that. That's all part of tech support. You can call us and ask us if there's any issues like that. So here's our simulation with my custom tool. It's cutting along the side here. Cutting along again, stepping over 1/8 of an inch, and then going along the other side and doing the 2 passes there. And so I don't know if this would be railing necessarily with this specific tool, but you get the idea of the custom shape that you can create and be able to see it in simulation and make sure it looks correctly for you. This is the type of shape you want to cut out. And then if this is the right shape you want, you can close out of simulation. You can make sure that your compensation is set up correctly and all types of things there. And then we can, up at the top from simulation, we can click on post. It'll generate the G-code in my posting window, where I can right-click in the posting window, save as, save it onto a flash drive, and send it over to the controller. You'll see up at the top of the G-code program, you can see this test comment right here in parentheses. That was what I typed into MDI, so you can type in exactly what you want to create your own G-code file that you need. And if you need to edit it after the fact, you can also right-click in the posting window, go to NC Editor, and that will open up the NC Editor program to modify the G-code to whatever you need. In the Bobcat software program, this G-code program here, you're not able to change it so that we have an original copy, but you can open it in NC Editor and you can modify it over here. Everything is color-coded, so you can see everything. The notes here are in green. You can see X, Y, Z moves are different colors, and the feed rate here is highlighted, so you can easily find what you're looking for. And you can, I don't know, we'll delete some of these lines here. You can see I deleted line 13 through 17, so I'm at line 12, and then it skips to line 18. If you're really, hard set on looking at the line numbers here, you can go up to the top and resequence them very easily. Just click on resequence line numbers, and it'll change from 12 to 18 to 12 to 13, 14, 15, and just resequence them again. Up at the top, you also have a tab for, this would be the editing. You can undo what we did. You can find and replace certain G-code. Up at the top, we have View, which you can compare to G-code files. That's in the NC Editor Pro, so you may not have those buttons. So ask us about that if you want the NC Editor Pro to compare two programs side by side. And the next tab over, Simulate, is only in the NC Editor Pro, where you can actually have NC Editor read the G-code line by line and play through the simulation here. So the NC Editor actually reads the G-code line by line and simulates it. A little bit different than the Bobcat software program. It only simulates the graphics of the toolpath. So if you have anything incorrect in the G-code here, the NC Editor will actually show you if there's any incorrect G-code being output. If there's a gouge move in the actual G-code, it'll read it and show you here. It'll actually give you an error if there's anything, a plunge move into your vise that you can bring in, things like that. Then our last tab here is Tools. So if you have any older machines that you want to send G-code to through a cable from your computer, you have your RS-232 communication up at the top left here, your Start DNC Transfer. And you can set the port number, baud rate, and all of those settings to send and receive from the machine. So that's sort of an extensive explanation of the NC Editor as well. All right, we're coming up on time really for the setting up your custom milling tools in Bobcat today. Just some basic options of setting up your tool in the tool library, setting up custom shapes of your tool, setting up your feeds and speeds in the tool page, and also using the feeds and speeds from your material library for your specific tooling. Eric, you said, every tool I pull up has the right tool feeds and speeds with no edits. Perfect. That sort of brings up another idea here of your feeds and speeds. That can be really useful, and we'll sort of close off on that. While I'm finishing up today, just to show you, we have in the chat, I believe it's in the chats, I just made a poll. This is the first time I made a poll here, so you can see on the screen, what would you like to see in the next webinar we have on October 1st? We do webinars every other Wednesday, so the next one's going to be October 1st, same time, 1 p.m. Eastern time, and you can click whether you want to see lathe, bob art, or wire EDM, and I'll publish the results at the end there, at the end of the webinar. So we go back to the tool page. I'm going to right-click on the feature here in the cam tree and go to Edit. And I'm going to the tool page. And sort of as we were just saying, you can type in, let's say I always want my spindle RPM to be 5,000. I always want my cutting feed rate to be 200, and I always want my plunge feed rate to be 100. I can have that as my default settings for this tool. If I go to the tool crib, I go to double click on the webinar tool here, And then down at the bottom, you'll see this checkbox, use system feeds and speeds as well. That will, if the checkbox is checked, it will calculate the numbers based on my material library. If I want to just set some default settings, I can uncheck that box. And down at the bottom, I can set my spindle RPM to 5,000, set my cutting feed rate to 200, and set my plunge feed rate to 100. So that way, every time I go to a new milling operation, it will have those feeds and speeds every time I select that webinar tool. You can see it's grayed out, and it has spindle RPM of 5,000, cutting feed rate of 200, and plunge feed rate of 100. So that is one way that you don't have to make any edits to your feeds and speeds. You've got them right there. Let me know, Eric, if that's what you were thinking about, or maybe you set your feeds and speeds at the controller. A bunch of different ways to be able to set your spindle RPM and cutting feed rates for your tooling and make things easier for you so you don't have to change it every time. I think that was it. I think there was one other thing I was thinking about, but sort of slipped my mind at the end there. So let me know what you have as an idea for the next webinar, those 3 different topics, and I'll publish the results here in a few minutes. And I'll sort of hang back and see if you guys have any questions that you have in the comments section. If you're able to view the webinar live, you can ask any questions in the chat box there, and I can answer anything that you guys have when it comes to, whatever we did in the webinar today. Yeah, I thought there was one other thing I wanted to go over, but that was pretty much it. I think one other thing we can do in the tool library as well is we can import tools from the machining cloud. So we could actually go to a tool, and actually we have to go to a tool category here, go to add tool, and then we can, up at the top here, I believe, merge import file. So if this drop down up at the top left in the tool library, I can import a file, and you can see down at the very bottom, machining cloud. When you go to a tooling manufacturer's website, they'll have tools as zip files, and you can save it onto your computer and load it in from there. And then it'll bring in the shape just like you have your custom shape here. I think that was pretty much all I wanted to leave off with today. All right, Eric, you have one question. I set it up as MATL, but I used the tool name instead. You would have to see how it works, but I have had Bobcat for years. Awesome. That's good to hear. I love hearing you guys are repeat customers of ours, and that that sort of shows that you guys at least like Bobcat somewhat, and that you like it enough to stick with us for years and years. I've been with Bobcat for 8 years now, and we've got a lot of different customers that I've known for 8 years, and we're a smaller company. So I'm one of only a handful of techs that we call you, and we sort of know you on a personal level. We know what your project was last week, and we hear about your project this week, and all along the way of helping you with your project, we log in and we say, okay, you got stuck here. This is what I would do next. And, just sort of work on your specific project. We know you more on a personal level than some of the larger companies that I sort of describe it. You're not really a number. You're not just a number with us. We know you on a name by name basis and help you out from there. All right, so David asked, are you planning to have a webinar on new V38 features? Good question. V38, all I can say really is that we're coming out with it sometime next month, so be on the lookout for version 38. And yes, we will be doing a webinar shortly. It may be October 1st. It may be the next webinar after that. I'm not sure. That's sort of to be determined. But yes, very shortly we will have all of the new features of version 38 and all of the benefits of of version 38. I think there's something like over 100 different new features, some small, some very large, and very large in the software program, like a totally new layout for your mill wizard here. So a lot of things to look out or to look at in the webinar to be able to navigate version 38 a little bit easier there. So yeah, great question. It might be October 1st, might be October 15th, but sort of speaking on that, we only had 3 people vote on the we only had 3 people vote on the poll, so I'm just about to publish the results. And this is my first poll, so maybe not the greatest, but we have, I published it. Maybe we can show on scene. It's a 3-way tie. So I think, as David mentioned, we have version 38 features that might be October 1st for our next webinar, and maybe I can set up another poll for that one so that we have a few more people voting on that one to see what you guys would like to see in the next webinar, so that you can see exactly what you're using in the software program and different ways of how to optimize the CAD CAM software program to optimize machining time and everything else, cut times, calculation times in the software program, and being able to machine the part that you need exactly how you need it from the software program. So anyways, enough rambling from me. That is our time today on creating the milling tools in the Bobcat Cam V37. We hope to see you in the next webinar, October 1st, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And I want to thank everybody for viewing our webinar today on creating custom milling tools. Thanks, everyone, and hope to see you October 1st. Have a great day. See ya.